The Nikon Z8 is the camera we've all been waiting for, and you need to get this thing in the water because it is fantastic. Now without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into making this system and fully decking it out. Before we do that, there's 4 things on the settings I want to mention. We'll do a whole nother video on settings, but do go through and make sure that you have the shutter screen to protect the sensor. We're going to go ahead and set our power settings so that we don't have to use the on-off control. And we're going to make sure that we can't take a picture without a card installed. That kind of prevents you from going out and taking a bunch of pictures that you didn't actually take. And last but not least, set your camera up so that you can charge through the power charge port. All right, so go ahead and install this camera into this housing. It's quite simple. Take the housing, open up down on its face. We're going to unlock and lift each of the lid snaps. There's 3 of them. Lift them up over the hooks. Take your back, set it aside. Inside, you'll notice that I already have a USB-C bulkhead and cord installed. Go ahead and check the video on how to do that here. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the manual hot shoe. Manual meaning it's ground and trigger only. I will keep this with my spare parts because I'm going to be shooting TTL with this system. At this time, I'm going to replace that manual hot shoe with the TTL hot shoe. It's got a yellow band, but you'll also notice that there are 5 contacts for communication. Replace the manual hot shoe by clicking it into place of the bulkhead here. Set that aside. Take the camera mount out of the base. Set this aside for right now. Turn our attention to the camera. Notice there's a 1/4-20 port bottom, 1/4-20 screw in the mount. Gonna line those 2 things up like so and simply screw it together. I do recommend using a screwdriver. We want to make sure this is nice and snug, firm and secure. Any translation of movement is going to cause misalignment in the controls. Bring our housing forward. I'm going to go ahead and take this port opening here. I'm going to move it all the way up like so. I don't want it interfering with controls or anything like that. Don't have any accessories on your camera. It's a tight fit in the housing. Take the USB-C with the right angle. We're going to plug it. I prefer the charging port. I have a very big card, so I don't worry about data transfer here. I would rather charge my camera, so I'm going to go ahead and use that port there. Plug it into place. Make sure that's out of the way. Take the opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and slide the TTL hot shoe onto the top of the camera. Make sure that it is fully slid forward. You want all of those pins making contact with the camera. That way you get the communication you're looking for. Slide this into place, right to the base. Go ahead and check this sealing surface. Make sure it's clean, free of debris, no hair, no debris, no sand. Set that forward. Turn your attention to the back. You'll notice you have a compression seal O-ring that follows an outside curve at all times. This does not require any lubricant because it is not a piston seal. Do check to make sure that it is clean, that you don't have any hair or debris on it. Take it, set it down over the back. Take your lid snaps, lift all 3 of them up and over onto the hooks. Tighten both the left and the right at the same time, and then tighten the top. Take the opportunity to make sure that they are locked in place so that they don't open on their own. And also check that you have a nice seal. That's one of the benefits of the full clear back, is to see that seal all the way around, and it looks like we are good here. Take your manual hot shoe, keep it with your spare parts that you travel with. In this case, I'm going to do a fully decked out system. This is going to be strobes, the whole 9 yards. So I'm going to add a second handle. I'm going to add 2 extensions for the AF on and the shutter so that it's comfortable from that right handle. So let's go ahead and just dive right into that. All right, so before we put this right handle on, let's go ahead and put 2 extensions, one onto the back shutter or the back lever and the front shutter lever. To do so, you'll notice there are 2 set screws in each of these levers. We're going to loosen both on each one using the hex key included. And basically what you're doing is you're going to back those out, set that aside, and in its place you're going to put these extensions. I like to put it to where I can get the set screw to a place I can get to it. So I'll set that one there, set that one there. Same hex key. Go ahead, snug that up, make sure it's nice and tight. Same thing with the one on the back. Now this is octagonal shaped so that there are multiple spots that you can put this around here, really kind of fitting your shooting style. I'm going to go ahead and say I want mine about like so. I'll go ahead and tighten that one up. And don't forget you've got 2 set screws here, so you're going to want to make sure that they're both tightened. And we'll do the back because I like to do back button focus. So make sure that that's going to curve to my thumb, like so. And again, you have several choices of position here, so really kind of fine tune it to what you like. Okay, keep this with your parts that you're going to travel with, very lightweight. Take this, flip it down like so. This is our right quick release handle. It has 2 threaded ports on it, and there are 2 through holes in the base here. We're going to go ahead and take these screws. We're going to thread them up through the base and into the extension. Get your thread started with the included hex key. And then do the same thing for the other one. And then what I like to do at this point in time is I will have the hex key in this orientation. Then I'm going to flip the hex key around so I can get some more torque on it. Make sure it's nice and snug. And make sure the other one is also nice and snug. Okay, that's it. You've added 2 extensions, get a right handle. Now we have not only that additional stability, very ergonomic to reach, we have 2 points for our strobe arms, which we'll be setting up here in just a minute. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and choose a lens, add a port, and go from there. There are a wide variety of lenses that we accommodate, so make sure you check out our port chart where you can see all of the lenses that we support, all of the zoom mechanisms you'll need, all of the port components that you would need for each lens. Now, me personally, I do like the 14-30 native Z-mount lens. I also like, and I'm a huge fan and always have been, of the previous 8-15 fisheye lens. Now, this particular lens is going to require an adapter. If you don't already have the adapter, you'll notice that the original one that they offered had this kind of bulbous bottom to it that you could mount it to a tripod. This is not my preference. I don't like the extra space it takes up on the bottom. They do offer one that does not have that. It looks like this. So that's just a side note. I would choose this one if you don't have one yet. But this 8-15 is a great one that I would take with me. Use the compact dome port or the large dome port. But for this setup, we're going to shoot the 14-30. And the 14-30 can be used either with a compact dome port or the full 8-inch dome port. Now, because of their lightweight and very affordable price point, I do travel with both for this lens as well as my fisheye. And the reason for that is I do like the compact dome port for what I call general photography. That's going to be just, regular scuba diving at depth, going in and taking a smaller, reduces drag in the water, lets you get tucked into tighter places. But I do travel with the 8-inch dome port, the full one, because that lets me shoot over-unders, which I do, big fan of. Both of these ports can be used with our 50mm extension for the 14-30. So let's go ahead and set this up. Before we get focused on the housing, let's go ahead and focus on the lens just for a second. You'll notice that there's a clamp set, and that has 2 pieces of foam. So if you remove the backing from the foam, all you have to do is remove the backing, take that foam piece, fold it over on itself, and then hit the center where that tab is. Make sure you squeeze it all the way on, make sure it's nice and adhered. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Make sure it goes all the way around like so. Make sure it's adhered nicely. And in this particular case, I'm going to make note of the indexing dot on the lens because I want that indexing dot to align with one of my tabs here. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that those tabs are going to face what's the camera body. Align it like so. And then what you're going to want to do is basically simply walk it down onto the lens until you reach the lens zoom ring. Now, what's nice about these is you don't really ever have to take them off, and I often never do. You'll find that my lenses have these on there all the time because I'm going to use it in the housing. So let's set this aside for right now. Let's turn our attention to the inside of the housing. Zoom gear retaining tool will basically remove your retaining ring. We're going to flip it over so that the dust cap comes out. Again, something you want to carry with your spare parts. We're going to take our gear sleeve. It is a sleeve that has teeth on it. We're going to take the opportunity at this point. You'll notice that our USB-C cord is slightly in the way here, but it's very simple to tuck out of the way. We're going to remove the Nikon body cap. Set it with your spare ports, obviously. Take your gear sleeve. You're going to drop it down into the port opening. You're going to take your retainer. You're going to drop it around the outside of that. You're going to take your tool into those slots. And at this point, you want it to be snug down. You don't need to over tighten it. This is keeping that gear sleeve in its place. Take your lens. At this point, take that gear sleeve. You'll notice there are 2 ribs on the inside diameter of that. Line one of those ribs up with the indexing dot on the camera body. And because you align one of these tabs with the indexing dot on the lens, it will make that bayonet very smooth. Take your lens, which you're going to want to just drop it down into place. You want to make sure that those tabs interface with the ribs of the gear sleeve. Once you do that, drop it into place like so, and you'll click it and bayonet on just like you would your lens. Take this opportunity, if you're like me, get a lens cloth, make sure you didn't put your hand on the lens, or even better yet, put your lens cap on, but don't forget to take your lens cap off before you put your port on. So from this point, because the 14-30 can be used with either the full 8-inch dome or the compact 8-inch dome, I'm going to be shooting compact 8-inch dome for general photography. Both will use the 50mm extension. So before we turn our attention to the housing, let's grab our 2 components here and some included Ikelite lubricant. Take your port, make sure that your thumb screws are all unthreaded so that they don't protrude into the diameter of the sealing surface. Take your finger, rub your finger around that sealing surface. What you want to do is feel for anything. Obviously you want to look at it, but you can feel a lot more. You'll notice that the shade does correspond with one of those thumb screws, and that's going to be the top or the noon position on our housing. I'm going to go ahead and take that. I'm going to turn my attention to the extension. What I'm going to do is take a little bit of the Ikelite lube on my finger like so, and I'm going to run it around that O-ring. I want to make sure that I apply a slight film of that lubricant around the O-ring to overcome the friction. This is not what creates the seal. It also gives me the opportunity to feel any debris or hair. I'm going to take that, find the shade. I'm going to correspond that to one of the pockets on the extension. Align those. And then it's as simple as pushing the pieces together. Now both of those pieces are now sealed together, and the retaining thumb screws do just that. They don't create the seal, they keep them from being pulled apart. And then adding this port to your housing is basically the exact same thing. Make sure that your thumb screws are backed out and away from this inner diameter. Check to make sure that you don't have anything that's going to interfere with the seal. Take a very small amount of the Ikelite lube. Turn your attention to the port base. Again, run your finger around that O-ring, applying a little bit of the lube on the O-ring and checking to make sure that you don't have any debris. Before we go ahead and put our port on, we can zoom our lens. Okay, we have full functionality of the zoom here. That's good, that's what we're looking for. This shade that corresponds to one of those thumb screws, that's going to be at the top. So what we're going to do is take that, double check, make sure we don't have anything protruding in, line that up with the pocket like so, press on. Again, that's sealed now. Retaining thumb screws keep it in place. Now at this point in time, we have a fully assembled and sealed system here. We could go ahead and get in the water, but let's go ahead and take it a few steps forward. One of the most important things you can do to improve your photography is add lighting. Adding strobe lighting will take you to that next level, so I cannot stress enough how important this is going to be. It will carry with you from this system to your next. In this case, I have 2 flagship DS230 strobes, extremely powerful, extremely great quality of light, circular flash tube. We're going to go ahead and pair that with this Z8. It's going to be a really great combination. Now, as mentioned before, I'm going to shoot TTL, so I have a DL1 TTL converter. And to incorporate this into the system is quite easy. You'll notice that there is a cap on the bulkhead of the housing. I'm going to go ahead and remove that, keep that in my bag of parts. I'm going to have my TTL converter. Now, moving forward, you'll notice that there is an O-ring and a sealing surface, pins, and receptacles. Make sure that your O-ring is clean, has a slight amount of lubricant on it, and that your sealing surface is also clean. So once you do that, all you do is align pins and receptacles, plug into place, and then thread that down. Make sure it's threaded down so that those pins and receptacles are making contact. There's no need to use any tools or anything like this. You want to just make sure it's nice and snug down. From that point, we have yet another bulkhead here, and we have a dual electrical sync cord. Now you'll notice that there's a part that plugs into the TTL converter or the housing directly if you're not using a TTL converter. And you have 2 leads going off to your strobes. Now you'll notice that one has a red band and one does not. And the one that does not have a red band, that is your primary. This is what's actually providing power back through the cord into your converter. What's nice about this is that there are no batteries in here that you have to replace. So just like we did on the bulk of the housing, we will hook this lead to the converter, aligning pins and receptacles, making sure that our O-ring is clean and slightly lubricated. Now, it doesn't matter which one of these two is being the primary. If you were to have a 51, which would be a lower powered strobe, or in a DS230, for example, I would make the larger, more powerful strobe my primary. Also, it doesn't matter which your primary is on. As force of habit, I've always made my primary strobe be my right-hand side. So in that case, I'm going to make my primary the right-hand side, take the bulkhead caps off of my strobes, keep those with my parts, pins, receptacles, O-ring, and sealing surface. At this point in time, before I hook up my arm system, I will power on my primary, and in doing so, I will notice that power is supplied to the TTL converter and it starts glowing blue, indicating TTL. To get off on a side caveat here just for a second, if you were to press this button, it will turn red. That leads this into manual mode. That means that you can now go to your strobes and set the intensity of the strobe via the switch position. 99% of my images are shot in TTL. What I want the strobe system and the camera to communicate for that automatic exposure within my 6-foot radius. I set my camera to manual mode. I have control over the composition, the background lighting, and everything like that. So before I add arms, I'm going to go ahead and power both of my strobes up. I'm going to make sure they're both in the TTL switch position. I'll take a few images, making sure that everything is firing fine, making sure I have a card in my camera, making sure I don't have a lens cap on my lens. That's important. And at this point, I can turn the strobes off because they fired the way I wanted them to. And I can incorporate my arm system. I do recommend a dual arm system, not only for wide angle, but it lets you use the carry cable. I take these wing nuts, I face them towards me because it provides me a good hooking position for the dual sync cord. So I'll go ahead and drop that down into place like that. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side, like so. Make sure that they click into place. I will bring this down to my strobe, open up the clamp. I'm going to hook in the strobe, tighten that up slightly. I need to over tighten it. We're going to do the same exact thing to the other side here. Open our clamp, hook in our arm, tighten that back up. Take the opportunity to take this. Make sure that you have these arms oriented like this, where these slots face like that, and that way it'll work really well with our carry cable. Take this, hook it over those wing nuts, it gets that out of the way. And at this point in time, you can go diving, but I highly recommend the carry cable. It makes your life much, much easier. Hook that into those rail arms, like so. Do the same thing on the other side. Now, the best part about this system is that it slides up and down these arms. So when I'm traveling with the system, going to and from the boat, to and from the dive site, offshore, handing it to somebody up on a boat, I can fold my system together like this, and that carry cable rides up the rail, and it's easy to carry. It's easy to hand to somebody. Handing it to somebody on a boat gives them a good position. You can loop it over your shoulder as you walk to the boat, and then when you get down into the water, simply drop it down into place, and it lets your arms go out to where you want to be when you're shooting underwater. Now at this point in time, we could certainly get in the water, but there's one more thing that I want to do to this system, and that is create a vacuum on the inside. Creating a vacuum inside your housing is not a requirement to make this system work, but it does provide peace of mind. It does make sure that you didn't forget an O-ring. It does make sure that nothing got nicked. It does provide a lot of peace of mind when you're putting this system in the water. And furthermore, creating a vacuum sucks all of these components together. Your port's sucked to the front, your back is sucked to the front. So if you find yourself in really rough waters, all of these parts are reinforced by that vacuum. And to create the vacuum is quite simple. You'll notice that there is a vacuum valve on the bottom right here with a push button on the front. Push that button to remove the cap. You'll notice the cap is tethered. It does have a piston seal, so a little bit of lubricant on that is always a good idea. And at that point, you will plug in the barb from your pump and then simply just pump the hand pump until you've achieved a vacuum. Okay, once you've achieved a vacuum on your housing, the number that you go to is not the critical part here. The fact that the number isn't changing or the needle isn't changing. If you notice that the needle is dropping, that means that you're losing vacuum pressure and you have a problem. An O-ring is compromised or you've forgotten O-ring. But if you create a vacuum, I usually recommend 10 because it's a good, nice number and it also creates a good vacuum inside the housing. You'll notice, watch it for a few seconds, make sure that the needle isn't moving. And at that point, I will remove this from the system and I will let this sit for an amount of time. The longer, the better. If you have the opportunity, I do recommend making this assembly process one of the first steps that you do when you get there. It lets you get everything done and out of the way and you're ready to get in the water. You can let it sit for 10 or 15 minutes and then re-hook up your vacuum and then check to make sure that it jumps right back to 10. You can let it sit overnight, which is what I like to do a lot of the times. But the fact of the matter is you can re-link in your vacuum, check it, make sure everything's good to go, and you're ready to get in the water. Now, one of the benefits of this is that the USB-C bulkhead here lets me recharge this camera, so I don't have to disassemble everything to recharge the camera. And that's it. Now you have everything assembled to take one of the most exciting cameras available on the water and really explore that space. If you have any questions whatsoever, comment below. Feel free to shoot us an email to ikelite@ikelite.com or give us a call. We're here for you.